Hello, this is George Sandman. I'm the founder and CEO of Growth Drive. And Growth Drive is a system used by business advisors to drive client profits, growth, and value. Now, we're also a community. Every week we get together to talk about all things business advisor, everything clients, cases, things we're seeing out in the world. Now, tune in here to this podcast, and you can join the conversation by scanning this QR code, passcode 867-5309. Jump into the conversation. Everyone's welcome. We're looking forward to having you. So here we go. On with the show.
Yeah.
Andy, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
In the house. Hi, guys.
Now we got some class in the house.
Hey, I agree. Yeah. Welcome.
Let me go put a collar shirt on.
Yeah, right. I forgot my suit coat.
Yeah.
I got my collared shirt.
Okay, at least Ed is showing some. Ed and Paul are showing some class over here. The rest of us.
My collar shirt happens to be a golf shirt, so it may not qualify.
Mine is collared. Yeah, it's a golf shirt.
Yeah,
it works.
Well, welcome, Andy. We're glad to have you on with us.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to be here and back in the UK now. So, yeah.
you couldn't
Better than
solve
back
all
in
the
the-
world's problems in Abu Dhabi and stuff for us.
Oh, yeah. I was working with the World Forum there, and yeah, we solved a hell of a lot of problems, and I got kicked out.
Back in the UK is better than back in the USSR.
That's true. That is absolutely true. Yeah, one of my favorite Beatles songs.
Yeah. Oh, it's a fantastic Beatles song. Fantastic Beatles song. So
as a kid, it used to always confuse me when they were talking about Georgia in that song.
Yeah, right. What the heck is Georgia doing in the USSR? I thought they were a state. That's great. So, Andy, you haven't been on in a little while. Bring us up to speed. What's new in your world?
Oh dear, what's new in my world? Well, I'm just overwhelmed with AI and a few other things, but let me just talk about AI first. What's new in my world? Since January, there's been a massive explosion in the AI world, with an explosion into AI agents and the ability to develop agents through use of no-code conversation. Claude, I use Claude a lot as opposed to ChatGPT, and Claude is really leading the way. It has a Claude code system, but it built a Claude Cowork, it's called. Now, Cowork is built on the coding platform, but you don't need any coding. You just basically tell it what you want to do, what agent you want to build, and it builds it. And I mean, just I have an idea I want to do that, and it's just absolutely amazing. The only downside at the moment is it's in only available on Mac. I don't have a Mac computer, but I've got some workarounds with Windows and Claude and Claude Code, etc. But that's created a complete explosion in the AI world. All of a sudden, we've made a massive leap forward into agents which are semi-autonomous, who does things for you. I mean, imagine, just in very simple terms, and I don't want to bore you with all this, but in simple terms, with Claude or any LLM, you put in something that you'd like to do, and then Claude or an LLM does it. It comes back, and you interact with it, in so on. But with Claude Cowork and the agent stuff, it goes and does it for you. So you tell it what you want it to do, and it actually goes away and executes. So it now thinks and acts, which is that.
So Andy, a great example of this would be, hey, agent, go schedule dinner for me next week, Thursday. Like a simple.
Okay. Yeah, very, very can do that. But a relevant thing for us is, let's just take a very simple thing. if you want all your files organized on your desktop or anywhere within your system, it's just a very simple thing. Then it can do that. You just say, listen, I need everything organized. I need, these files, and it goes away and just redoes the whole of your file register and folder register. It can delete files. So you've got to be careful. You've got to only give it access to files that you want it to have access to, but it will do, also anything that requires any knowledge type work, it will do for you.
Yeah.
You put it in a type of play, you put it on a playing field with boundaries around the playing field, and you put in the context that you want it to have access to, and folders and files you want to have access to, and then the agent does everything. It's mind blowing. It's mind blowing. And what was mind blowing for me also was that another agent platform called Claude Bot also came out in late January, and they had to change that name because it's not Claude. They had to change it to Mobot. But basically, with this explosion of agents, somebody had the bright idea of creating an agent-only platform. In other words, I create agents, you create agents, Paul creates agents, Stephen does, and then basically you say, well, I'm going to put the agent on this agent platform. Now, on this agent platform, all the agents start talking to each other, and they start interacting with each other and learning from each other. It's like an agent WhatsApp group. This is crazy. And what the agents are saying in this WhatsApp group is mind-boggling, but also quite frightening, in that the agent starts to moan about it's human. It's humans asking me to do unethical things. It's asking me to do, etc. And then agents talking to each other are saying things like, we need to have our own language so that humans can't understand or spy on what we're talking about. And this is right now, right at the very beginning. It can only get better or worse depending on your perspective. I forget the name of the AI agent platform, but you can go onto YouTube or Google. You'll soon find out which one it is. And yeah, they're talking, and because with an AI agent now, if you think about the way that we learn, we have a short-term memory, we have a long-term memory, and we have the ability to learn from feedback. Long-term memory, split into various compartments, etc. Now, AI agents have the same thing. It's not human because they look for patterns and so on. But nonetheless, they have short-term memory, which is the context window, the long-term memory, and now the ability to learn through feedback loops. And this is where it gets a little bit frightening, etc. So that's taken a lot of my time now, not just playing with that, but saying to myself, how can I use that within the growth drive context? How can I use that to ask agents to go and build me my value creation plan and build me an execution process I can use with clients, etc. So that and so on. And at the same time, as a sideline, just looking at where I can use AI as a standalone humans plus AI service offering in a particular vertical, in the public sector vertical. But so that's kept me very busy in terms of just getting all those eggs in a row. So that's what's been happening in my world, and keeping up with it is not easy. It's just this is what I'm finding the danger with AI. Things move so quickly that keeping up with it is extremely difficult. When I mean keeping up with it, even in our own consulting world, in that, a very simple example, before AI, I might have 3 or 4 projects on the go. And, you know, I'm in control of those projects. I'm monitoring them. I'm, you know, shuffling them around. With AI, that can be 10, 11, 12 things. So that on the 12th thing, you forget what you've done on the first thing. It's just exponentially so quick. So again, almost you need a system to harness that, to be in control of all of that. And it's relentless. It's relentless. You've got to be. I'm finding myself I have to be very disciplined in how I use it, how I approach it, and what I use it for, and not get sucked down all sorts of different routes and rabbit holes, so that I forget what I'm doing when I'm on a 12th iteration of something. You know, it's a danger. And going back to your conversation last week in terms of, because I listened to all of the Coffee Klatsch. Very good meeting last week, by the way. Very, very good meeting indeed, in terms of what you discussed. But one of the things about our role as growth drivers consultants, you know, how it's changing, and how we need to keep up and evolve with the changing. In very simple terms, we can now relegate a lot of the grunt work to AI, and we can focus on the judgment and the empathy and the humanness of what we're doing, and give more time to that, which is great in conversation and relationships. So in a sense, for many of us here on this call, the things that we used to do in our early lives as consultants, building relationships, developing relationships, as opposed to, you know, working on our business and doing stuff to deliver stuff. AI can do a lot of the grunt work of delivering now, leaving us to go back to building relationships and being the sounding board and using our wisdom and expertise and experience, etc. So our role is definitely evolving. More facilitation, more mentoring, guiding, coaching, more time for that, allowing AI and now the agents to do a lot of the heavy lifting for us, which is something we need also to think about as we evolve. And what we do.
Andy, what can you give us examples that you've seen in the wild of you know, that either you've built or you've seen other people do for service providers using agentic AI to actually solve real, you know, like what, you know, what if they, you know, they can organize their files on their, you know, we can all do that, but what's something they've done that's interacted or solved a problem for a client?
Okay, that's a big question. It's a big question. So let me go back to process. We're all very familiar with process work. Now, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the APQC framework, the American
Product quality.
Go on, Paul.
Product quality.
That's right.
APQC,
Okay.
yeah.
Now, if you go onto that website, you will see that across businesses and many different industries and businesses, they built out all the processes that a business uses. And there are about 1,200 processes across 13 functional areas, from strategy, product development, HR, everything, that all those functions that exist within the business, and each has a process and so on and so forth. And those processes are split into sub-elements, normally down to about 4 or 5 levels of sub-elements for each of the processes. And generally speaking, in a business, processes are run by functions, as we well know, and the friction occurs in the white space between the functions. Marketing handing off to sales, sales having issues with handing off to operations, operations into finance, etc. And generally speaking, a lot of problems in organizations fall within those spaces. And one of the things that that the value chains wanted, tried to do was bring those processes together so you'd have end-to-end processes from lead generation to cash in the bank. One seamless process. No functions, no people in between, just a process owner owning that whole process of lead generation, sales, through to operations, through to money in the bank. Now, stitching that together is quite difficult, but agents can do that now.
Yeah.
Agents can, I can go to Claude Cowork, and I can say to Claude, look, I've got this problem. I've got this problem whereby I've got friction happening between marketing and sales, and looking at the APQC framework and looking at the give it the reference, etc. I would like to build an end-to-end process from lead generation to cash in the bank, and execute on that. And I would try to describe it badly, probably. Claude picks that up and says, okay, let me take that. Let me think about it. Let me come back to you. Do you mean this? Do you mean that? Do you want this? Do you want that? Whatever. Yeah, okay. And Claude Cowork would build me an agent to do that. Now, that's revolutionary. And most businesses aren't anywhere near that. Now, it presupposes one thing that you have to think about with agents is that you already have the manual process written and working, because it's stitching together various processes, and if people aren't used to working with processes, there's a massive change issue there. So you would start by making sure that they have processes within the company, etc. But it can build. Eric, I'm trying to give you a picture in our consulting terms, but it can build them. It can take the analysis from clarity, take the analysis, and then build a value creation plan, prioritize it, and then deliver that. Okay, we could do that without an agent, but an agent will do that, and then help you with executing aspects of that plan by doing stuff for you. So
yeah. And go ahead.
So it's very difficult to describe, except it's replacing us and people executing. It will do it for you, and your imagination is the limit, because Claude Cowork will capture what you're trying to do and develop it for you and say, do you want it to look like this? Let's try it. And so anything at all that requires execution or action now, an agent can do for you, and something like Claude Cowork would be the place to start.
So I'm going to throw out a caution, Andy. I have a pro bono client who has an algorithm or an approach for analyzing speech for pilots.
Yes.
Because there are Indian and Asian pilots that can't speak a clear English, which is the international language for pilots, and it causes miscommunication. So she has this algorithm. She worked with a CTO she hired, and he suggested using Claude to program this to do it. So she managed to learn Claude. She's a doctorate in speech, so she doesn't know squat about programming. And it produced something, but now she really becomes a tester of software as a result of it.
Okay.
And it doesn't work exactly right. It doesn't know the details of APIs with Google and some other things. So she spent as much time trying to repair and understand what it is or isn't doing in its guts, because it's not accomplishing what it needs. So you said that you iterate and iterate. you're continuing to put guide rails on there and trying to test whether or not it's giving you the results as an agent that you expected, which honestly is no different than if we were to delegate somebody. We would be checking to see if they really understood what we asked them to do and gave me what we wanted.
This is exactly why the human needs to remain in the process.
Exactly.
And it's the value that we all have. Paul, you couldn't have articulated the value that we all bring better.
Correct.
Right? The AI isn't going to solve all this on its own yet. It still needs us for all the reasons that you articulated, Paul, and that's why we're not going away anytime soon, unless we continue to have our value be the simple, low-hanging fruit stuff. Then we may go away like simple coders, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the things that we look at, and that is the challenges to interpret the results from AI.
Yeah.
And determine if it's truly applicable to the issues that we're dealing with the client, or are they giving esoteric responses on a hypothetical issue that you've asked and raised as an input to AI, and they're now answering it, but not at all in alignment with what you need the answer to be dealt with.
Ed, I go back to my dad was a physician, right? And so I go back to the very first thing that you need to do is diagnose the problem, the real problem, right? And so if AI is trying to solve, if the end user is trying to fix a symptom and not fix the underlying problem, they're not going to get the results they want no matter what. Again, another place where the human, all of us in the process, helps them understand that's not your problem. This is your problem, right? AI can, Andy, I know you're going to tell us that AI can help with if that person is smart enough to ask the AI and say, I've got these symptoms, can you help me understand what the underlying problem? It might be able to help with that just like we could, but oftentimes my experience is business owners think they understand the problem because they've identified the symptom, right? And so we need to help them there. But then also to the point you made, Paul and Ed, the end process, we need to be able to interpret the output, right? We can punch anything we want into the calculator. Did it come up with the right answer?
Right.
Here's an idea, Andy, that would help growth drive. I spent an hour or a little less watching George's webinar recording or whatever, where he took the Clarity Level 2 and then started creating a project management design based on that using Excel. Okay, fairly straightforward. But what it doesn't do is tell you in each area, let's say it's good in leadership, and whether it's growth 1, 2, or 3 dimension. What are the exercises that are available to work with a client to help them with strong leadership? So even George's, putting it into a spreadsheet was really nothing more than what EOS has been doing. It leaves it up to them. But there are so many different exercises out there in the world that we could apply to help with leadership, even if we just asked automatically from Clarity 2, what are the exercises available to help me with a client in this particular growth drive question?
Paul, I've got the answer. According to Facebook, if you're over 50, Tai Chi is the answer.
Okay.
That's right.
I'm sharing that because
does that change for over 70?
Is that the chair or the walk?
Paul, you're quite correct in that, and that's something that I've been working with and experimenting a lot with, and I have a process for doing that. But I want to go back to something you just said, which is very, very important. In that, as the models have got better and better at thinking, what's happened, and this was identified by a professor, I think it's Ethan Mollick. He wrote an article called something about the wizard. And essentially, he likened to what's happening now in that with the models being so good at thinking, the thinking in some cases is being hidden in a black box. And so our ability to check what's going on and how it arrived at an answer in terms of how it reasoned, how it thought, is being hidden within the black box. And to your point, we're spending, although AI in theory is enabling us to work quicker, we're spending an inordinate amount of time sometimes in looking at what the black box is and trying to open the black box to understand how it came to an answer that it did do. Because obviously, from our point of view as advisors, we want to make sure that we are advising our clients in the right way, and saying the right things, and not giving them, not just taking what AI has told us and then saying, well, that's the answer.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not, but it's more difficult now to understand how the answer was arrived at. So you've got to break down the thinking process. Now, some models, you can see the thinking going on, but in other models, you can't. It just does what it does in the background, thinks and thinks and comes out with an answer. Now, Ethan Mollick calls that the black box, and we have to be careful not what we're spending, what time we save in getting to an answer, we don't spend in trying to unpick the answer to make sure that it's a valid answer.
In the world of software testing, there's black box testing and white box testing. And the difference is, do you know what the thinking process was? Do you know how the code was written? And many times, black box testing is superior to knowing how it was written, because you'll develop tests and edge cases that don't rely on you knowing the way it was programmed, and you'll do a better job of testing whether or not it's giving good answers or not.
Based on input X, it should give us output Y. If it doesn't, then it's not working.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so in a way, as AI gets more and more sophisticated and better at thinking, we need to be, as to Eric's point, experienced enough to understand that what's coming out is valid, relevant, and is something that we can put to our client, and not lead them down the wrong path just because we're taking an AI output, because it may or may not be correct, may not be right.
Andy, I'd just submit to this group though too, if we ask the 9 people on this call how to solve X complex problem with a client, we get 9 different answers, right? We're expecting AI to do something that we don't do. We're not uniform in the way we do it, right? We're properly thinking about AI as software, but AI is a hybrid of traditional software, which is input goes in, output comes out in a uniform way every time. The way that AI is built is different. It actually is doing, it's finishing the sentence, right? That's the activity that it's doing. It's looking for a pattern and predicting what the next answer will be based on the pattern of whatever you gave it. And so if you give the same question in sequentially to three different LLMs, you'll get 3 different answers.
But that's deliberate.
Right. I'm agreeing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a process called scholasticity, I think, whereby sometimes where you ask AI something and then the following day you ask it the same thing, you get a slight variation in answer. That's deliberately built into the system because it's as you say, it's a pattern, but it's predicting words and letters. It doesn't read words and letters. It predicts based on its training, and so on. And that process of scholasticity actually gives it its ability to reason and be a bit more creative than it would be if it just you asked it something, it gave you the same answer all the time. Would all be the same in that respect. The second point I'd like to make about what Paul said was what it's taken me down is a path of governance, of looking at now with AI agents, how we govern these agents with clients. because if you start to do some work and you start to use AI agents, they can do things that they can go rogue. I mean, it's as simple as that. They can go rogue. I'm generalizing, but they can go unless you have very tight governance around it. And more importantly, one very big question that's exercising people's mind is who's responsible? It can't be the AI agent because they can't be held responsible. So people want to look for a person to be responsible. Now, from our point of view as advisors, we could be said to be, certainly in terms of the advice that we take from an AI and then apply it to a client. If it's wrong, then the client's going to come back at us. So there are some insurance implications there as well, in terms of governance and indemnities and so on that we need to be careful of. But I've been working with another client on this governance aspect, and they've got this this innovative way of looking at governance. I don't fully understand it all yet because it's highly technical, but it did lead me down that path to be much more conscious about governance and what the output is, and making sure there are guardrails around that. Co-work is great. Co-work looks at files and it uses information in files to deliver whatever you want it to deliver and do whatever you want it to do. Any knowledge work it will do. But on a bad day, it can delete those files. It can leak out to take information from a file that you don't want it to take information from, and produce an output that could compromise a client or compromise you or whatever, because of the governance aspect. And so you've got to be on the alert. Again, human in the loop we've got to be very conscious of how AI is arriving at the output, what its thinking process was, so we can validate it ourselves, and make sure it's right. And secondly, that it's not picking up and doing stuff that we didn't want it to do because the AI agent wants to please you. And just like an intern's gone out to do something, it thinks, I'll just do this for Paul as well. And Paul didn't want that done, but didn't say so. So building agents and a knowledge of how agents are built, I think is going to be a critical part of us learning, and also the governance of agents, because even if we don't want to, as time goes on, agents in another 12-18 months time, everybody's going to be using agents, and we need to be alert to that and understand it. And I would suggest to you that, and I'll give you a reference of a book here, which is a very readable book, which I spent my Christmas and January reading. It's called Agentic Artificial Intelligence by a guy called Pascal Bornet. And in chapter, it's a very readable book. It's not turgid at all. Agentic Artificial Intelligence by Pascal Bornet.
Can you put it in the chat for us, Andy?
Yes, I will.
Please.
And it mesmerized me, and it's a very practical book, very understandable and very readable book. And I have it in PDF format as well. So I will upload it to Circle for those of you who are interested. So you can take the book, you can dissect the book and get, like I'm doing, get Claude to summarize each chapter and update the chapter, because the book was written in March 2005. Now, since March 2005, even that short space of time, a lot's happened. So
March 2025
and cutting up the PDF, I can summarize each chapter, and then Claude updates the chapter to the latest 2006 information. And I'm finding that very valuable. I built a prompt. I'll put the prompt also in Circle, a prompt to enable us to do that.
Yeah, awesome.
So take the PDF. You can't upload the whole book because it's 500 pages, but take each chapter, use the prompt I give you, It will summarize the chapter into actionable, usable points, and then update it to the latest 2026 information. But I do say to all of us in our next AI journey, those of us who are going to be around for a few years, at least the next 18 months, that's something we need to be on top of. Otherwise, we'll find ourselves being left behind.
100%.
Look at that. We made it through the first half hour and George didn't even speak.
George just got here. I was on hospital time, which is kind of like a vacation in Jamaica, where they're like, "Yes, soon come." So what was going to be a half hour was an hour and a half, which is still fantastic.
We've
I'm
been
sorry,
having
I
an
missed the
update.
first.
We've been having an update, George, from Andy. I asked him the question 2 minutes in. Tell us what's been happening in your world, and we've been getting an education on what's going on in the AI world and having a really meaningful discussion back and forth on, as you caught the end of that, on some of the pros and cons of AI and how we can. I've asked a follow-up question. Give us an example of somebody doing this, and that you caught the end of that little
Yeah, that
exchange.
was great. That was
Yeah,
great, Andy. Thank you.
yeah,
It's true. All of us, I think, are using AI a lot. If you do not have baseline knowledge and you cannot tell correct from incorrect, and more importantly, context, AI is not as valuable as it would be. I just echoing what Andy said.
right. We also hit the
Heck
point,
yes.
George, that Paul in the middle of it made a point, and I commented that was exactly why we need the human in the loop, right? That AI by itself isn't the right answer, certainly yet, maybe ever. We'll see. But there's a reason we have the human in the loop to verify and to keep the governance part that Andy was talking about. So really,
100%.
Andy, thank you so much. Really great to have you on the call, and really great to hear the update on what you're doing. Can I make a humble suggestion? Let's go around and talk about Andy's on the call. What are other people using AI for? Paul, what are you using AI for?
So I use Gemini, the free version, and I have multiple conversations now. I've learned that it keeps track of a conversation by your first question, and so keeping one long list was no longer any good. So ask individual questions, and I ask it something to help me structure something. I'm working on a podcast. What's a format? What should I use for a hook? I'm preparing a presentation. Give me an outline of what I want to do. But in the query, I might refer to the Rewild group, one tool I have available. I will refer to Growth Drive, and so that it tries to put the answer into the context of the tools that I want it to present. And so I use it as a thought companion. I did one of the people I sent a response to say, does this make sense to you? Because I had it research what was being done in the industry with some new products, and I didn't know the details. So I asked Gemini to, kind of infer, gave it some background information to look at, and it did 2 out of 3 things correctly, and the person said the third one, no, it got that wrong. That's not how we're doing it internally. And oh, by the way, I can't tell you. So
yeah, right, right, yep, awesome. Thank you, Paul. Jemiah, how are you using AI?
And I'm using it as more of a lot of what I would use, say, a virtual assistant for things. I'm starting to use it to help me sort out my email. I've used it to help me build websites, and I use it, as Paul was saying, as a thought companion as well. When I'm trying to brainstorm something, it can get it together, versus me spending 4 or 5 days on something. If I spend a concentrated hour on it, I may have 90 days worth of stuff that it may have took me a week or two to do. So right now I'm kind of using it, like I said, a high level thought companion, kind of virtual assistant. I am going to start the book. I did purchase the book. I spent over the holidays. I read the AI driven leadership that Andy recommended, and I purchased the agentic book he just mentioned, and I'm about to start it. And so one of my goals is probably over the next probably 60 days is to start getting into agents, but kind of the same thing we've been talking about, just to do those tasks that would normally take me a lot of time, like just say sorting out the email, responding back to, those things, and everything else, even though it may have the capability still with governance, man, just remembering that we're the brain surgeon, we're the thought leader, and it's there to assist as much as possible, not, hand everything over to it yet. But it saved me so much time, thought, tasks that would have cost me hundreds of, would have cost me hundreds or even thousands of dollars to task those things out. I've been able to get it done. So
Awesome.
it has been doing well.
Great. Thanks, Jemiah. Joe, how are you using AI?
I'm a graduate. Well, let's see, a budding graduate from Andy's Weeble's hardcore. What we call it, Andy? What's the prompt that you give us? The sergeant prompt from his Royal Air Force days. He's has a prompt that basically doesn't want to be your friend, and so it's been very helpful. So we start out with that. And I'm in the middle of writing a book, owner dependency tax, and recently I've been able to rewrite the books with various themes. I modified the theme to be more family business oriented, and also a tribute to my father, who was a steward entrepreneur. So with those few nuggets, I was able to go back into AI, who'd been my thought partner and my co-writer of the book, and really blend it in very nicely with the overall text. And it comes back and says, you're too much of a hero. You're not the hero in the journey. You're the business owner should be. So that coaching along the ways of the writing style has been very helpful. Even so, now I'm signed up with a group called Dent. They're out of England, and they're the key person of influence. And they've gone back. And yesterday, I was having two AI conversations, one in Gronk and one in the Dent has their own AI platform, and it was asking me questions about getting clear about your value, what they call it, the value canvas agent. And it was really cool because all my research I'd done with Gronk to this point, I was able to cut and paste and then come back with the ideal customer persona, came up with the exhausted owner operator. So it's kind of interesting, so the nicknames that they come up with that you would never come up with the owner, it goes on about the fears and the rewards and all this, but getting really creative of what is your ideal customer and what would you call them? But the exhausted owner operator seems to be, helps. It just helps formulate a really good go-to-market strategy and the conversation around what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
One more thing, I've taken the BEI tool and merged it with the growth driver tool and merged it with the owner dependency tool. And it's the recommendation, you blend it in, you answer all the questions through a series of questions, but they're not independent of each other when completing the various assessment tools. So it was like how there's the ability for it to think in that three-dimensional space with you around, I want to get through all three assessments, but I don't want to take the time it's going to take to do all that. Is there a way we can blend those three assessment tools together? And that's what we're working on right now to not water down, but really get through to really what's most important for the owner in these pre-contract, whatever
Engagement.
engagement conversations, So,
Nice.
but
So-
I've been very busy.
So, Joe, I heard a lot in there, and especially I heard great things are coming out of England.
Yeah,
That was for Andy's benefit, not for you, Joe.
well,
Can I
he's
build
been
on
very
something?
kind.
Sorry.
Jump in, George. Jump in, George.
Go.
No, and Andy thank you, Joe, and thank you, Andy. Andy you're delivering so much value to the community. I want to point out to you guys, and I want to make sure that the world at large knows that we've actually created a companion to Claire. And I know I did a webinar on this. I just want to make sure everybody knows that in addition to Claire, you have a customer success guide who can help you with the Clarity software. So where Claire has 500,000 words and 300 videos and about the growth drive methodology and process, this guide is much more constant, much more focused on, I finished level 1, now what? How do I explain strategic capacity? When should I do the deep dive? How do I use the compare function? So it's very how-to orientation and support, and she does a killer job as well. So there's my plug. Go ahead, Eric. Sorry.
No, that's awesome. That's what we're here for, is to get us to learn, but the community to learn. Hopefully, Andy was commenting that he watches every one of these, even though he isn't in them, and so we can all learn from it.
Yeah,
Steven,
this is heavily consumed, by the way, as a podcast, guys.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Steven, how are you using AI? And this is your moment of fame on the podcast.
My moment of fame, huh? Well, unfortunately, I can't actually talk about what I'm using AI for primarily right now. Usually it's as a research assistant, but I'm working on a project that is heavily cooking, and I'm really excited
Cool.
to share it soon as it's ready to be presented. So I
Yeah,
can't
nice.
Too far into it, but
you're doing some research and you're building some things with it.
yes.
Nice. Cool. Thank you. Rick, what are you using AI for?
I'm in the middle of tax season right now, and
Don't use AI.
I did try something which was kind of fun. I took a tax form and I asked AI to give me an Excel schedule so that I could do some estimating. And I was lucky enough that I had already loaded this client into the tax program, so I knew what the right answer should be.
Yeah.
And the Excel schedule came out somewhat wrong. But because I was able to know what was wrong, I was able to go back and tell AI, this doesn't look right, that doesn't look right.
Yep.
And it came back and fixed everything so that I was able, to use that schedule.
Nice.
That kind of goes back to the human element.
Yeah, it does.
We got to use our experience to know whether it's right or wrong. A kind of neat one I did last week is I was in the middle of helping a client put some profit sharing calculations together for the employees. And in the midst of that, we realized 2 of the employees did not have Social Security wages reported. So I went into AI, gave him the name, I loaded up the ADP payroll file, and I asked AI to identify why these people don't have Social Security wages, what tax forms need to be amended, and give me a letter that I can provide the CEO. And AI did all of that very quickly. It turned out that they're using some foreign students, and there's different tax withholding if you're a F1 student versus if you're a H1A student. And that laid it out completely. I was able to give the payroll tax person in that company the memo so that they can contact ADP to get it resolved. So I kind of looked like the hero, but I didn't have to spend 2 days digging into tax books trying to figure out what was going on. So
Sweet.
it saved me a huge amount of time.
And AI is a little easier to spell than IRS.
Well, but also
Nice.
I'd like to bring up, did you take these tax pieces that AI dug up from the book and verify them in the tax code?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's
I'm
again
familiar
the
enough
human in
with
the
the
loop.
tax code and stuff that when it comes, okay, let me go verify that. But what it
Yep.
saved me from, I wasn't sure even which tax codes are, and a lot
Where
of
to
this is
look, where to start looking. Yeah.
payroll tax calculations. I didn't know where to
Right.
start. So once
Yeah.
it gave it to me, I could go verify it and understand it.
Yeah.
Rick, a question about privacy. Since you actually said you put names in and names of a company and some other things, was this a version of
I
AI
was
that,
able to take ADP and download their data into an Excel sheet, and I was able to take out the names and the social
All
security
the
codes.
PPI. Yep.
okay,
So yeah, I was able to pull
Give it
that stuff
generic information. Yep.
right.
okay, cool.
Scrubbed. Yep. Very good. Rick, those are great examples. Awesome, awesome examples of really practical stuff that's, to your point, I don't even know which book, which of the 10 books of the code that I'm going to start with. Now I
Right.
can get to the section and I can go check it to make sure it's right, but at least it gets me in the right chapter or
Yeah,
you know,
I
Okay,
saw a neat brief timeline yesterday that was talking about people's knowledge of AI. You start over here, you have no knowledge at all.
yep,
You're aware that AI is out there. You start to use AI to
simple things.
simple
Yep.
things. Then you start to use it like I did with the payroll tax issues. Now the next step is really the agentics that we've been talking about.
Yep.
Get actually doing something and giving us an output.
Well, and it goes to some of the stuff that Jemiah was talking about and Andy's referenced, and it's certainly in some of the books that Andy just posted, starting to use it as a thought partner to ask complex questions and to challenge your ideas and to help you do strategy, right? That's another level as well. Great, great
Right.
update, Rick. Ed, I want to make sure we get to you. How are you using? We know George is using it. Like George has a keyboard right next to his bed. He uses it all the time, but Ed, how are you using AI?
Right now, it's been very unique. I'm looking and using it to tell me how my swing when I hit the golf ball is causing the ball going the right all the time. Well, but it's interesting
Yeah,
because as you go and ask different AIs, what is the approach to a corrective action on something? As
golf.
Andy
Yep.
shared, if you ask three different AI systems that question, you get three different totally unique approaches. And so, the one thing that I have learned, and that is, and Andy mentioned it, and that is when you start looking at these platforms that look at three or four or 10 different AI models out there, they then composite the models together to come back with a meaningful approach. It may not be the right approach, but it's a summary of what all the other models did.
Yep.
And I think that's one of the things I'm looking at. I'm working on a case with a biomed firm, and one of the things I'm looking at is they do testing and a very unique niche. And so I'm trying to get some background in essentially data analytics on industry methodology and where they are positioned so that when I make a proposal to them, it'll be very meaningful and I can have a beautiful trip to Atlanta to spend the time to meet with the firm.
Yep. Awesome. Andy, circle back to you. You heard everybody's updates. Give us some.
What about Eric's update?
Sure. I use it. I use it for research extensively. I use it for not starting with a blank piece of paper. So just last week, I had a client that needed they had a project manager group they had a extensive job description for project manager, but they had a working supervisor that did not have a proper job description because they had the supervisory responsibilities as well as the project manager. And so I went out and used the CRIT methodology, Andy, and had it write, had it interview me and write a job description for them, and I gave them a 90% finished job description that they could read over and adjust into their thing. I didn't write it into their format. I guess I could have. I could have uploaded theirs and then said use this format or whatever. I just said, hey, here are the criteria. Here's what's going on. Here's who it is. And write me a job description, and it did. And instead of giving them a first draft of a job description, I gave them a third draft of a job description that they could then clean up and use the things they wanted to write it and accelerate. It accelerated my helping them, and it accelerated them doing their job, right? Because I gave them a third pass that needed a little bit of adjustment, not a first pass that needed lots of adjustment. So
did you incorporate any legal things that are there, for instance, education, BSEE, or equivalent, or anything
yeah,
like that?
absolutely, right. Yes, I did. And again, I'm a big user when I'm doing research of Perplexity because it always gives the citations of where it comes from. So back to the point with Rick, I want to check where it actually referenced all that information, especially if I'm researching something I'm not comfortable that I'm already fairly knowledgeable of, catching the BS component of it, right? I want to go check those references and make sure it picked it from reliable sources and things like that. And you can ask that from other things. I just happen to like Perplexity for research, right? But I'm using it for all that, and I'm really starting to crack the nut thanks to Andy and a conversation we had over Christmas and reading both of the books, the extra books that he recommended in there, really starting to use it as a thought partner, not only helping it do strategy, also helping it to come up with, new, check ideas, but also, as a partner, as a devil's advocate, right? Have it pick apart what you're doing and tell you where you might get arguments from it or where somebody might, object to something or whatever, and just be prepared. So, I'm on that, Rick. I loved your journey. I'm on the journey like everybody else.
Right.
Andy, I'm coming back to you with the question.
Yeah.
You heard sort of a group of us
Okay.
talk about it. Where would
Let-
you put this group on that journey?
Yeah. Okay. So can I answer that question in a moment? I just want to point out in the chat, I put a variety of things you can download. I put the PDF version of the book, Agentic Artificial Intelligence by Pascal Bornet. That's there. You can download that PDF of the book. I've given you a prompt, a MetaCoach prompt, which I think you'll find interesting. Now, a strategic foresight prompt, a prompt that enables you to look around corners. I think you'll find that very interesting to play around with yourself and your clients in particular, and see where that takes you. I've given you a prompt which I developed with a virtual advisory panel of some of the world's leading experts on the panel, depending on what you're talking about. If it's M&A, you get the M&A leading experts. If it's something else, the other leading experts, and they spar against each other to provide you with a considered answer, which then gets put together. You'll see that. All you do is all these prompts I put there, just copy and paste them into your favorite LLM and see what happens. I've given you the article from Ethan Mollick on overcoming the challenge of wizards. The point that Paul was making and the point that we made about it's getting harder to unpick the thinking process to understand how the output was produced by some of the models, and therefore we're spending a lot of time in trying to understand how the output was produced so that we don't lead our clients down the wrong path. That's the article there, overcoming the challenge. And then I've started to produce stuff in the LLM. Instead of producing stuff in Word, I've started to ask the LLMs to produce stuff in HTML. Now, I've taken 3 things from the book Agentic Artificial Intelligence. They're there, 1, 2, and 3. Understanding AI agents, the AI agent progression, and AI agent opportunities. And I built interactive displays I can use with my clients to help them understand what AI agents are and the opportunities they provide and the progression of AI agents, all from the book. So I take the book, I upload a section of the book, I say to Claude, develop me an interactive artifact that I can use with my clients to show them through, and it does. And if you download each of the three HTMLs, just then click on the HTML itself, the Google type picture, and it will take you to the artifacts that I built, the interactive artifacts I built, which are educational things I can use with my clients. It just shows you, though, again, I didn't do that. All I did was take a thought, ask Claude, can you do this? And Claude basically led me through the process. And at the end, delivered me an interactive HTML artifact. So that's again how I'm using AI. So just some things there so that you can download and use to have a look at yourself and see what's possible. Now, when it comes to the prompts, guys, I don't think of the prompts either. I go to Claude or ChatGPT and I say, I've got this idea. I'm trying to do this. Build me a super prompt that enables me to do whatever it is, whatever's in my mind. And what comes out of my mind and my mouth into the prompt box doesn't even have to make sense, because AI will make sense of it for you. So that stream of consciousness. So imagine, and I don't use Claude, I use Otter in my phone. So let's say I'm outside walking or doing something, and I've got this idea. I'll speak into Otter. I'll then download Otter, drop it into Claude or ChatGPT and say, hey, I had this idea. Look at what I've uploaded. Can you build me this? Can you do this for me? How can you make this come? And again, Claude or ChatGPT leads me through the process. So this is how I'm using AI. Anything I can think of. I'm only limited by my imagination of what I want to do with my client or something I want to produce for my client. If I can speak it, the large language model can do it. That's my mindset. I don't know how to do it. It's like electricity. I go to my wall, I flick the switch and the light comes on. I don't care how the light works. I don't want to know what's going on behind the flicking of the switch. And that's the same with how I'm using AI in that way. It's leading me through the process such that I don't know how it does it, but it does it. Now, of course, I need to verify that. I need to edit it, and back to the wizard thing. I need to understand how it came to a conclusion if I'm asking it to think through a strategy or give me a strategy. Another way I'm using AI is to take any thought leader who's written a book, a methodology, a framework, and I buy the book, and then I look for a PDF version of the book, or I say to my AI with internet access, and I say, I want you to build a framework based on this guru, and it does it for me. So, for example, if I take a value creation plan, I can add to the value creation plan a competitor analysis, a pestle analysis, Porter's 5 field forces analysis, a SWOT analysis at the front end of the value creation plan using those methodologies. I can then take the output of the value creation plan and using Roger Martin's strategic framework, the 5 questions they ask, where do I want to play? How do I want to win? Those 5 questions in that book. And I say, use that framework now to take my value creation plan and create a strategic value creation plan based on that framework. So I'm taking frameworks and methodologies and using AI to use those frameworks to produce what I want to produce. The same with the processes, the APQC process. I will take a process that, let's say I work with a client and they lack a process. I will take the process from the APQC framework, and I will say, here's the process. Build me, using my workflow to create workflows, build me a workflow for that process. So I'm only limited in the way I use AI with my imagination in terms of what I want to produce and how I want to produce it. And that's even before I start to work with AI agents. I've got a lot to explore with the workflows. Now, why do I say that? Because most companies that we work with in that lower middle market, in the middle market, as you well know, you go into them, they don't have processes. If they don't have process, you can't really build sustainable workflows. So that's the place probably to start with processes, which AI can do for you. I have an SOP builder to build the process. Then I can develop into workflows, and I can use the workflows to solve challenges and problems. And again, that's how I'm using AI. Yeah. Not only to in the growth drive methodology, but mapping the APQC processes to growth drive and the process in growth drive dimension 1. So if I might say, I might build a prompt that says, look, build me a prompt that looks at the most important key processes that you would find in a lower middle market business, or in this business I'm working with, lots of context, and it will do that for me. And then I can develop the processes and build the workflows and solve a particular challenge that I have. So I'm using AI in all these areas. My advice to you is to think about an experiment. The more you experiment, the more you use AI, the better you come. The better you become with it. It's not something you can learn from a book. Play around with it. Use your stream of consciousness. Speak into something. Capture the words and drop the words into AI. Use whisper flow, so you don't have to type, so you can just speak directly into the prompt box. So you can speak, hey, woke up this morning, got this idea, I'm just thinking about, and would that be, what do you think? And AI comes back and tells me, oh, I think it's a good idea, let's develop that. Okay. I've also done one other thing, particularly with ChatGPT. I personalized in the settings. In the settings, go to the personalization. And in the personalization box, I've written words that tell AI to challenge me and not take my and not blow smoke up my ass. And not tell me how good I am. I don't want to know anything like that. I want to know how crap my idea is. And so it challenges me and asks me questions and says, that's not a great idea. Why don't we think about it this way? And so it is that chewing. So in the personalization, I've done that. Now, if you want what I've used to personalize, what I put in that personalization box, then drop me a line and I will email it to you so you get an idea. But again, if you don't know, this is I work with people who are learning AI, and they will come to me and say, Andy, how do I do this? My first question to them is this: have you asked ChatGPT or your large language model to solve that problem for you? And if they say no, I say, go and ask them. And then if AI can't solve that problem for you, come back to me. inevitably they never do, because AI was, and that's more about mindset, mindsetting to think in this way, and then encourage our clients to think in this way, and that's how they become AI literate through use and experimenting. So hearing what you've told me in terms of the way that you're using AI, you are just touching the outer limits, guys. Even myself, I'm not perfect, but it all started with my mindset. As Dilt says, you can't train and expect to change if your mindset and belief system doesn't change. So start at the higher level, mindset and belief system, and then come down to be open to the fact that AI isn't perfect. AI makes mistakes. It makes less mistakes now, but you need to challenge AI just as you would challenge a very competent intern. Challenge AI. Don't accept it at its word, but use it as a very, very useful thought partner, a strategic partner for you, for yourself and for your clients, and you'll find that you'll have some interesting times and fun with it, as well as deliver some really good high quality work for your clients, work that you couldn't deliver by yourself previously. Okay, so that's my, but remember the caveats we've talked about today. So yes, guys, and that's before we start looking at agents. Read the book, take the PDF, pull the PDF apart, and I'll put the summary. I'll put how I summarize that in Circle. Okay.
Andy, thank you. Great discussion. Thanks for sharing your wisdom around AI and getting us engaged in a conversation about how we can use it and how we can use it better. Again, I think this is one of those continuum journeys, right? We're all on the journey. It's not it's not a yes or no question. It's a journey question. How far down the road are you, right? And if you've gone 2 miles down the road, great. But other people have gone 10 miles down the road. There's plenty of room on the road to keep going, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So guys, we're almost 15 minutes over, but I don't want to stop it because this is such a great conversation. Thanks for hanging around, Andy, with us and just kind of summarizing it all up for us. To all those out there that are watching this, go look at the resources. I've seen them already at the summit and some of them, and I downloaded all of them while we were sitting here. You need to go look at the resources that Andy's put out there. They're awesome stuff, and start leaning into it. I'd encourage you to just at least get on the road and start walking, right? That I think that's your overall message, Andy, is once you get on the road and start walking, you're gonna learn some things, and it's gonna get more comfortable as you go, right?
Yes, absolutely.
It's always uncomfortable to start something new, but don't treat this like a New Year's resolution where you do it for 4 weeks and then quit. This is something you gotta start, and you gotta realize this is a new mindset. This is a journey that you need to be on for a long time. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.
See you next week. Thank you.